Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. We are here to continue our virtual engagement for Student Org series. So for those of you that tuned in last week, this series is a group of universities that have come together to help make the fall experience better for you as student organization leaders. So each week we're bringing together panelists to talk about a myriad of different topics. So we've got folks watching from DePaul University, Maryville University, University of Central Oklahoma, and Simpson College today. So thanks everyone for tuning in, but we will go ahead and get started. So as we start here, first, let's start with introductions. So our panelists, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do on your campus? And Rigo, we'll start with you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rigo. I work at DePaul University here with Courtney. I am the coordinator for campus activities, and so like everybody else on this stream, I have a really fun job. My primary duty is working with our campus programming board, DePaul Activities Board. So they go by DAB on campus. And I also work with our Blue Demon Week committee, which is essentially our DePaul University homecoming series, as well as any other campus activities that may pop up throughout the year. And so working with multiple student groups and then our office programming.
Great. Thanks, Rigo. Caleb, how about you go next?
Hi, y'all. My name is Caleb Cash. I'm the Associate Director for Student Engagement at UCO, the University of Central Oklahoma. I work primarily with our orientation program called Forge, and then that also includes our Welcome Week programming for what we call Stampede Week during the first 2 weeks of school. And then I oversee all the programming in our office as well as one of our large campus programming events.
Awesome. Thanks, Caleb. And Rich.
I'm Rich Ramus. I'm the Associate Dean of Students at Simpson College in Iowa. I work with predominantly everything that falls under student activities, our program board, our fraternities and sororities, our student government association, and, you know, whatever else gets thrown my way. And sometimes it sticks and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, really one of those jacks of all trade, as we all are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So to start our conversation off today, I'm curious if y'all can tell us a little bit about how your campus has approached virtual programming. Have there been any, guiding principles you've had or any general philosophies you've taken as you dove into things?
I can go ahead and start again. So for us, back in March, when we learned that we were going to go virtual, and then going into the summer and learning that we were still going to be mostly virtual, I think our focus for the students was mostly trying to figure out which events ideas or which event concepts they could keep rather than just like trashing all of them and starting over. There were some event ideas that could be transformed to take place in a virtual setting. And so with that, it was a lot of trial and error. And so we started out with our trivia series, which ended up being a huge success, as well as our bingo series, and then tried a couple other things like bringing on performers onto Zoom. We were finding that our attendance for those were maybe not where we wanted them to be, and we started trying different things like maybe having them be streamed online through Zoom, and eventually we discovered StreamYard. And so it's just been a game of trying to figure out what works for our campus, and as a guiding principle is remembering to stick to the spirit of what the event was originally supposed to be. And so what can we offer that we typically would still offer? Like our office is still doing midnight breakfast, for instance, even though it's going to be online, because it's like one of our campus traditions. And so a guiding principle for us has been staying true to the programming that our students know and that our students love and expect as well.
Same with us. We at UCO said, what are our programs we have the rest of the year, and how can we change them over to virtual? And one of the first things we did was our Campus Leadership Awards, which was a very interesting experience. It was like a week after or maybe 2 weeks, and I immediately figured out how to use Zoom, how to live stream to Facebook on multiple pages, and then starting to figure out what do our students like to do and not do. And we had, I think, probably 200 or 300 people tune in just for those Campus Leadership Awards. I had lots of friend requests that day because we had to stream it to my page at first, and then we did a watch party. So learning the technology has been something new on our campus. And then immediately following that, we started prepping for our orientation program, which was fully online this summer with Every day we had a different video for the students to tune into and to join us. And every single day we had at least 100 students that were tuning in to get that information. So we ended up putting over 1,800 students through orientation, all through virtual programming. And then we had about 500 family members who joined in as well, and for their programs, all through Zoom webinar, which has worked great for us. And now I'm excited to learn about this new program that Courtney's introduced me to today, and figure out how I can introduce that. And now as we guide into this new fall semester, we're just trying to see what will work best for our students. And I think it's still trial and error at our institution. We're seeing that they are tuning in for some of our events, but not the numbers that we wish they would do. But we're also offering hybrid programs, so students can still come in person, or they can view it online and they can choose what they feel most comfortable with.
I think much like you all, I think back in March, I think that we started looking at things and trying to figure out how we can kind of keep some sort of normalcy for our students, even though they weren't on campus. And, I'll freely admit that back in March, I clearly was living in a fantasy world, thinking that everything was going to be back to normal by August, which it clearly isn't, but, it is what it is. But, what I found myself doing in order to help kind of with that shift to a virtual sort of program was I searched for literally everything. I'd find myself up in the middle of the night searching for crap and looking for a variety of things. Yes, we were going to do bingo, and I think bingo is probably one of the easiest things to do. But I was looking for things that, how we can keep them engaged, whether it's through trivia or whatever. We found this thing called GeoGuessr, which is basically you can make maps, and students, it basically connects to Google Earth and Google Street View, and it plops it. You choose a place on a map, it plops you down to the nearest street view, and you have to figure out where you are based upon that street view. And it's actually it's pretty cool. It's pretty inexpensive. So we shifted to that and did a lot of those things. We did a lot, I think, that what every other school was doing as well. I mean, I was a fan of stealing whatever other schools were doing as best I could to try and adapt them to our scale. And some of them worked and some of them didn't work. This fall, we're still doing some virtual programs, but we're also doing a mix and match where we're doing some hybrid where we're limiting capacity, but we're also streaming those events. And there's a lot of events that we're going to go back to until we're in a better place that are going to be streaming. So they're going to be 100% virtual, like bingo and some other sorts of events that we're just not going to be doing in person because we can't have the critical mass in one location.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things that, when Rigo started talking, and I've heard throughout, I've heard like references to this. I think that one of the really critical things about virtual events is it is, in my opinion, it is almost near impossible to do a traditional campus event online. So the language that Rigo used was like the spirit of the event, right? Like Rigo talked about, like, we tried to capture the spirit of the event in a different format. And I think that's something that's really important for student organization leaders as they're planning events to remember. And what all of you have talked about here, you may have taken an event title or an event concept, but it sounds like what you did, especially for your virtual events, was you reimagined what that looked like in a virtual environment, because it's going to be near impossible, I think, for students as they're planning events this fall to take the exact agenda that they had, or the exact run of show, if you will, of the events that they had in person last year and just do them online. I think it's really important for students to reimagine what those experiences look like. So, yes, at DePaul, we're doing midnight breakfast, but we're not handing out pancakes. We're not doing anything else. And we're not going to try and fool students that it's going to be the same, because it's not, right? Like, virtual experiences are not the same, but they still can be these robust community building experiences too. So I think to me, that's been one of the guiding principles that's been helpful for us at DePaul. And we do have we've started looking at events differently too. Like we now have live community building experiences, which are events that happen in real time in a Zoom room where you can oftentimes talk to each other. But then we do a lot more experiences like what we're doing right now, a streamed experience that students can watch and experience in their own time. So we have a live component to it that they can watch and interact, but then the recording is available for them forever. Right? Like if they want to watch it at 2 a.m., great. If they want to watch it 45 minutes from now, that's fine too. But it's more programming designed in their schedule. I think that's been an important component for us too.
Yeah, I think that, and I think I've told you this, Courtney, before, that it's been one of those things for me anyway, where there's, and this is going to sound really borderline stick, but there's been something that's been a little bit fun about being able to reimagine all this sort of stuff. And my students know this. They know I hate bingo. I never wanted to do bingo on campus, but I lost that vote with them years ago, and we've been doing it for the last 20 years or so. But I hate it. But in a way, it was kind of fun to be able to reimagine how all these things are looking in a completely different universe. And there was some fun about it. There's a quote that I was reading in an article that said, I think it was Winston Churchill or somebody that said that you never let a good crisis go to waste. I think that if there's any group that's kind of suited to never let a good crisis go to waste, as student activities professionals, in that our nature is to be able to shift at a moment's notice and make something work when it's not supposed to work. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's what this has done. I mean, you're right. Not everything has worked. I think that, like Rigo, you said that with live performances from a virtual sort of standpoint, our students chose that they really weren't into that and didn't find any enjoyment in doing that whatsoever. It just, to them, it was just like watching another YouTube video, and they were just not into it. Mm-hmm. So we avoided going down that road. And even though we'll still, when we do have a live performer on campus, we'll stream it, but we'll also allow as many people as the college will allow in person to watch it as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, Rich, you bring up a really good point that I was thinking about a lot this year. Oftentimes in student organizations or even in our office, I hate to use this word, but we rinse and repeat. We'll bring out the event, we redo it again, and we just kind of change one small thing. We add a 8-foot tall snowman, or we have Christmas trees that are new, or just something that's different to the experience. And we don't really think about how do we change the program. And this has actually made us really think, like, how do we change and adapt our programs? And that's a conversation my students and I have every day. I'm like, how can we, again, keep the spirit of the event, but do it virtually, or have multiple experiences for the students so that we can get all the students through? And that is actually really exciting for me. I have enjoyed the change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think this leads into our next question, particularly for our student organization leaders who might be planning virtual events for the first time. What are some things that have worked really well for you? Like some either guiding principles or just some events that they could look to plan for their student organizations.
I think giving them, for us in particular, giving them something that allows them the opportunity to interact with other students will get them motivated into actually hopping on a Zoom call or hopping on our social media to watch a video. I think that they really value, like, even like during our first trivia, I was like shocked at how many people were using the chat feature, and it's something that continues to be heavily used during all of our events. And so in a time where everybody's at home in isolation, I think that students really value being able to interact with other students. Now that really looks very different than I initially imagined. We're used to getting on Zoom calls and like having our video on and talking to each other. We're on this like live stream right now, and that's the way that we communicate. But for a lot of our students, that's not their preferred method of communicating, but that doesn't mean that they're not looking for avenues to connect with others. And so events where even if they're able to communicate with other people via text, it has been really valuable and something that has really worked well for our campus and where we see our biggest turnout.
Mm-hmm.
And you're all going to laugh at me when I say this. The thing that probably worked best for us, and I'm going to use our orientation experience and some things I noticed, we started playing music before we started the show, and people just started chatting in the chat box, and they would chat throughout my entire presentation about how to enroll in classes. And oftentimes we would have to remind them, hey, we love your community that you're building here, but we also need you to know how to enroll. So make sure you're paying attention or to watch your language. So it was really cool to see that they were interacting. And when we stopped playing the music, you could see that the chat would die. Or if we forgot to play music one time or something just accidentally happened where the music didn't work, they didn't chat, they didn't ask questions, and that community wasn't built. And then their other favorite part through the orientation experience was the small groups, because the actual presentation was webinar, so they never got to see each other. But the small groups done in the breakout sessions or in the orientation leader-led Zoom calls were the most like exciting parts. Like the students were like, I loved it. There were like 5 of us in the room and we got to talk about whatever we wanted. And they just want to have that space. And I knew this summer it was very important that they got to see other students somehow. So I would encourage any student org, if you get the chance to have face-to-face conversation, even if it's virtual face-to-face, like you should take that opportunity. It works really well for your students.
It's interesting that you mentioned the music, Caleb, because I do that every once in a while before our SGA meeting. Because, you know, they're going to be long meetings. They're going to be painful meetings sometimes. And so I started to play music before them. We had an SGA meeting last night, and I got in late, and I didn't have time to put music on. So all of a sudden I see in the chat, it's like, it's quiet. Why isn't Rich playing music? Typically we come into music. And so I was like, I'm sorry, I'll be back next week. We'll be playing music next week. It'll all be good. I think, though, in getting back to your question, Courtney, I think if there's any advice I'd give to somebody, it'd be like, don't expect the programs to be exactly the way they were in the past. And that to take advantage of this particular time that we're in to figure out, okay, this is a great opportunity to reassess, reevaluate, reimagine, and do it completely different. I think I've probably had the hardest group to probably help with that has been our fraternity and sorority students, because I think that they're used to recruiting the same way they've done for the last 70 years or whatever it is. Yeah. And this has thrown a wrinkle into that recruitment process. But, you know, they're learning, they're adapting. They haven't liked it all the way, and there have been some bumps and bruises. But I think all in all, at the end of the day, the process is going to work out better, because as opposed to focusing on a physical house or the great decorations that one chapter may have, they're going to be focused on a conversation and getting to know those men and women that are actually going through the process.
Yeah. I think that's really critical. I mean, because you have to think about these events in a very strategic and different way than you perhaps did before. And I think for me, there's a couple things that some of the things you're saying reminded me of. And Caleb, like when you talked about the orientation rooms, one of the biggest pieces of advice, and one of the things I oftentimes hear from students is like, it's so awkward to lead a virtual event. And my number one piece of advice is just keep talking through the awkward. Just keep talking, and others will follow, you know, like you will eventually hit that topic. And like this, it might require you to have like a list of exactly what it is you're going to talk about and how you're going to go throughout your event. But I think it's just have that and just keep talking through it. And if we know that you're probably going to run into some technical snags, have a screen up or have something ready or something to do to put in that place. If you do hit that snag, it can be your event poster and say like, we'll be right back, we're having technical issues. We'll be right back. But I would say just keep talking through the awkward, you know, and just keep going through it. I think that really helps. And people, I think, in this environment are more forgiving, and they understand more than usual that we are all still learning through this. But I think the other thing that has worked really, really well in virtual events that I've seen is designate a person to almost be your production person for the event. So it's very hard for your speaker or your event organizer to also be the screen sharer or the music person or you know, the person who changes the text on the screen, whatever that might be. It's a very hard skill to learn, but designate somebody who isn't going to have their video on, so they don't have to like be looking like this, but they know exactly what to do, what to put up. I think that it is a small thing that, one, it gives somebody a meaningful role in your event, but it also just helps for the flow of things, because they know that they're not going to be called on to speak. They're just going to be the person who helps the tech side of the event. I think it's a small thing that can make a big difference too. So, you know, conversely here, I'm curious, what are some things that have just not worked well, or you've learned and you're like, oh, we thought this was going to be great, either event-wise and element-wise, or like in your prep, that you're like, we just need to stop that. Like that never really worked out.
Oh, Courtney, I actually want to take one of the things you said, like talk through the awkward. That was so hard to get some of our students to talk through the awkward. Like for them, if there wasn't talking, they were just done. And I was like, your small group should last more than 7 minutes, friends. It should last at least 20. But talking through that awkward is one that we're still teaching our students, and we're still learning ourselves. Like, how do we talk through this? How do we find the place that is where it becomes normal? So that hasn't worked well for us. So we're still learning that one. And then other things that aren't working well is just some of that weird tech stuff. Like, I'm not a tech guy some days. Like, some days I just struggle. And I am often the person that's behind the screen and on the screen at the same time. So I am controlling everything, and it works well, but then there are days that it just doesn't work well. And I love the idea that you're like, just have a tech person. I'm going to do that now. I'm probably going to take your idea and use it. Be like, that's brilliant, tech person.
Yeah, I think for us, I think like since we have so many events that are taking place on the same platform, so like as opposed to being, you know, like when you're on campus, we have events that are in different rooms and like different locations. It's like easier for students to distinguish the events. But we've noticed like a lot of questions in our social media asking for clarification. And I thought this event was supposed to be happening now, but they're talking about like a different event. And so I think we're really trying to be clear with our marketing, and including more descriptive text. To avoid confusion, like here's a link, and kind of like reiterating a lot of information that we normally like put it out once and we like do a reminder the day of the event, but I think people start to get confused because everything kind of starts sounding the same after a while. And so we're trying to do a good job of like making sure that like our graphics are different background colors, like blue and red are university colors, but eventually everything's going to start looking the same. And so like using different color palettes in our marketing and using different text and really making things look different is something that, so I guess like what hasn't worked well for us has been everything sounds the same. So like shifting our marketing a little bit. Yeah. What I would say.
Well, and Rigo, if I can piggyback off of that comment for a second, I think the time component of that too is a lesson that we learned really, really fast. I think about, particularly if you're doing streams or you're doing like streamed events, think of it like a TV show. And, you know, I know Netflix is huge and people watch a lot of like Hulu and they watch it when they want. But, you know, back when cable was a bigger deal, people would watch, well, humans by nature are people of routines, right? They like to do things at the same time every day or every week, or they build schedules around things. So when you're creating your programming, particularly if you're looking at a series or you're looking at doing something multiple times, don't change the time or the day. Pick a day, pick a time, and do it at that day and time every single week. Because then, like as humans are these creatures of habit, it will build into their schedule. Like our Student Government Association right now is doing a civic engagement and social change series. We talked about like, well, should we change the day up or should we just do it, you know, Tuesdays at 5:30? We landed on Tuesdays at 5:30 for a couple of reasons. One, because we know we can build a viewer base and a engagement base for those people who are available at that same time every day. We also knew it was going to be available on demand for people who couldn't experience it live. So in the event, typically what we see is we have around 30, 40 students who watch and experience and engage in the event live. And then we have hundreds more watch the video afterwards. So I think like the thing that did not work well is that let's move things around, let's move times. That was a concept. That's a concept of something we do for in-person events so that we can talk to different people. But right now, what we're looking to do, we're really looking to create that consistent engagement with the same people, because the way that at least the way that I personally see engagement right now is in the way that we're approaching it in student involvement. It's like a funnel, right? So you do videos and you do streaming to capture their attention and capture their, or to let them know that you exist and that you're there. Then you start to do these other experiences so that you can bring them into those Zoom rooms or create a relationship with other students or your organization or the office. But you're not going to get them to come to that experience until you first capture their attention. So you want to cast that wide net first so that you can get them to eventually come to those community building events and become a member of your group and a member of your organization. So I know that was 2 different topics, but that's one of the things that I've seen that just generally, I avoid changing time. Like, people are creatures of habit.
Yeah, and if I had to say something that didn't work well, changing time is one bit. I think I had this desire, especially early on, to try and find the answer now to things and find a solution for things. And I don't know that I did a great job of vetting any particular piece of software that we used or any new app or anything like that to the level where I think that we put our best foot forward. And I think that that's probably the biggest one. I mean, I think that I can always point to programs I don't think did well, or students didn't respond well, or in theory it seemed like a good idea. But I think that the biggest piece for me was not taking the time to vet the things that we were trying to do virtually as well as they should have been done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. If I can have one other thing that I think I've seen be a huge hiccup for student organization events, I think that, and I'll talk about this like any day of the week. I think it's really critical when an event is over, stop it. Like, end the meeting, close the Zoom, end the stream, like whatever it is, have it be over. Because there's this theory in event planning, and it's about creating a peak end rule. So when you are creating an event, what it talks about is like, you want to end on a high. And you want to end with a really great experience, and then you just want it to be over, right? Or like, you should have it end so that that's the last thing that people remember. And I think that what oftentimes we do in virtual events is we say like, okay, well, we're all just going to hang out afterwards. Well, when you let people hang out, or like you dally, or you just leave the room open or the stream open, it changes the ending. So instead of having that peak ending and that peak positive thought and experience, like, let's say you do bingo. This is a great example, right? You do bingo. The very last thing of bingo, you give away a $300 book scholarship. Great. Everyone's excited, or at least the one person's really excited. You had that peak ending. You should end the stream. Well, if you said like, okay, feel free to hang out and talk, and, we'll just leave the space open. You are taking away that ending of that excitement of that very last moment, and you're creating this like a space that it's not going to have the same meaningful ending. So remind people throughout your event, like, trade contact information. Can you create a group me or a Teams group that they can continue those conversations later on? But I think, in my opinion, it's one of the things that students oftentimes forget to do. Like, just end the event. When the event is over, end the event. Because it also gives people like that are ready to leave the chance to leave, while giving those others the chance to find the communication if they're interested in it. So sorry, that was my little soapbox, I guess, for a second there. I guess it's just a pet peeve of mine.
It's all good. Don't worry.
We all have pet peeves.
Right. So, as students are creating events, do you think there's one core component that in that planning process that they really should take into account, or something that they should plan for, or one thing that, is really critical in this event planning process for virtual events?
I think that the biggest thing is to rehearse. I mean, I think that when they're in-person stuff, before all this sort of stuff happened, I think it just was second nature. You just know what time you need to show up and how it's going to work, and that everything is going to work because you've done it for so long, and this is how it works. But I think that everything is so new and everything is so changing, and because it's virtual, you almost need to have pre-production and production meetings to rehearse and walk through the overall event, so everybody knows how it's going to look, everybody knows how it's going to feel, and how people are going to move through this virtual space. So to me, I think it's planning, scripting it out if you have to, timing it out if you have to, making sure you know the tech is going to work. Like I have a couple of test groups out there, like Facebook groups and YouTube groups that are private that I just stream to, so I know that it's going to look the way I want it to look online, those sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
I would say one key thing for our students to consider has been the intentionality of making it uniquely theirs in terms of the campus. And so I know, Rich, you mentioned earlier that you had like concerns about having live streams with artists that were booked. And so a way that we kind of like went around that is featuring artists from our campus. And so for a few of our events, we featured even online some of our own students that are student performers. And so that worked out really well because, you know, students get excited about seeing their peers on a live stream. It's something unique to the campus. And even when booking something through an agency, there's little things that you can do to make it feel different than something that you can just find online. And so like teaching them like the catchphrase from your university, or like your chant, your cheer, or like facts about the university, or finding a way to make it interactive to where students can like put in requests, and it kind of gives it an incentive for it being something that they can enjoy online. And so, yeah, we just started to think of little things to sort of give it that, not to refer to Disney, but the Disney treatment, which is they take like a very basic concept sometimes and they kind of give it a spin and make it really special. And so think of, here, I have a picture of it because it's a sticker. Think of like the ice cream, like that is an ice cream cone, or like an ice cream pop or whatever you want to call it. And it's just like, they make it Mickey shaped and it's special. And so like, what are things that you can do on your campus that give it that special spin? So it's something that we talk about with our student group. Yeah.
Like, Rich, I love that you talk about rehearse, practice, pre-production meetings, but I always tell my students, plan for the worst. Plan for your PowerPoint not to work. Plan for your music not to come on, and just be able to do it either without the PowerPoint or to like let your students know like, hey, this is happening. Just be real. We live in a new world right now. This is a very different time. And if we're prepared for it, we'll be good. So that for me, it's just like, just be prepared that something's going to go wrong. It's okay. It's human. Mm-hmm. So that's the normal thing.
Yeah. Even in those rehearsals and everything, I was in a stream the other day with someone, and we got there a half hour ahead of time so we could test everyone's mic, made sure all the screen sharing worked. She went to talk and it was silence. There was nothing. So we, luckily we were able to like troubleshoot on the spot. And so it's rehearsing, but it's also creating a backup plan too. One of the things that I think sometimes people forget, we spend so much time in front of our computer. Sometimes people forget that they can also join from their phone. That's a great backup option. Like, and I will tell people if they're like especially when we're live streaming, if everything fails, just go to your phone and click the link that way, because the sound works. We all know, actually, I think some of our cell phones have better cameras even than our computers do. So there's backup options too, which I think are really, really important. And, especially when we're live streaming at DePaul, when in pre-shows, I will go through every single detail of the experience, and I will walk through with guests or whoever's attending the event exactly what it's going to look like. And I will show them the screen. I'll say, you are going to see this screen first, and this is what it's going to look like. Then you're going to see a countdown timer. And when that timer ends, you will appear on screen like this, because you want to let people know, like, you're going to be live in this setting and you will be recorded and it's going to be going to these places. Even if you've put it in an email before, it's still worth saying it again. And then I always make it a point, and I guess this is a great reminder for our panelists today. I tell them, like, at the end, until you see that live button go away, your mic is still on. Like, giving people those details, because you don't want them to be caught off guard or surprised by anything. And all of that, a good pre-show, when you first start them, I usually suggest do like a half-hour pre-show. When you start to get the hang of them, you can do a good pre-show in about 15 minutes. And that 15 minutes is well worth it, instead of telling people to arrive right on time.
Yeah, someday when we're not online, remind me to tell you about not shutting a mic off, and or when we're in person sometime over some drinks.
Yeah, yeah.
Courtney, I actually, that's a really good thought. I love that. But I also like adding to you, if that's okay. Is it cool? Cool. Is to just kind of like make a joke of them and things that are happening. Like, I think a lot of times people forget that you are human. You can't be perfect. And like my students like freak out, or you can see it in their face. And I'm like, okay, your mic's not working. That's cool. Let's just test it out. We're, until you get it, no big deal. And just like laugh about it, because you're not going to be perfect. It doesn't matter how many times I practice. I still screw up something every time.
Oh, me too. Many times.
Oh, sweet, sweet Courtney. No, you don't. Oh, no.
I had one the other day that we were interviewing the vice president, and I think I like put on the screen that his name was Sarah. His name is not Sarah. I was like, oh gosh. Like, out of all the ones that I could get this wrong in. But I mean, again, like, you can practice everything and you have everything set up exactly how you think, and you will do something wrong, and it's fine. Like I said earlier, talk through the awkward, right? Oh. Like, whoop, that's not supposed to be there. Keep going, right?
My favorite is I turned on a Beyonce song in the middle of the alma mater during orientation one time. It was a total accident. And I was like, oops. And it was because I control the music from my phone, because it's easy to turn Spotify up and down from my phone. And it just happened. And I was like, sorry about that. Moving on.
Yeah.
Next screen. We hope you enjoyed Beyonce.
That's great.
Right. That really is great. So, we're talking about virtual events. We've talked a little bit about streaming, but what are, either stream-wise or in the virtual event world, what have some of your favorite events and programs been that you've seen your campus do?
Mine is a trivia. We brought in a company to do trivia on campus. It was one of the best things that I have seen. The guys who were in charge, or who were over, it's Nerdology. They were just really engaging. They were fun. Our students loved it. And for me, I'm not a trivia person, so I was like, oh, that's cool. But our students were all into it. They could do it from home, and they had a good time with it. So I find students that are able to engage that way, things that they would traditionally do out at some establishments in the community, that they can do virtually. It's really fun for them, and they get to kind of participate in a normal setting. Normal.
Yeah, I'd have to say probably one of my favorite. We traditionally had done this senior toast at the president's house when we were in person, and we weren't obviously going to have a normal graduation or have a graduation at all, and we weren't going to be able to have a toast in person. We wanted to have a way to honor our graduating seniors. So working with a lot of folks, we decided to do a virtual toast, and worked with our alumni office. We sent out glass etched wine glasses to every graduating senior, and with a card congratulating them, but also with a QR code to a meeting invite for this virtual toast that them and their families can join in on. And we're a small school, and we probably had like 200 or 300 people, both faculty, staff, students, parents, whatever, on screen. And it turned out to be a really good program, and I think really appreciative for those students who couldn't end the year the way they wanted to. So I think that's probably by far been one of my favorite programs that we've done.
Yeah, and I would say for me, it's probably been events featuring our students as hosts. And so like for bingo, one of our student employees, Grace, has been the host for bingo over the summer, and it's been really cool seeing her get more comfortable with hosting over the whole course of the series, and just seeing her have fun with the students that are at the event. And even like with our bingo, with our trivia series, like our programming board president Connor is the one that's overseeing that program, and then like featuring our student artists has also been really fun. So seeing students like be part of the event and have other students get excited about like one of their peers running it has been really awesome and rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've loved seeing that too. And I completely agree. The longer, and we call her Bingo Grace, but the longer Bingo Grace has been doing it over the summer, the better and better she's been getting. Because it just, it takes time. It takes time to learn how to do it. And I think for me, the one of the things that I mean, DePaul students probably know this because I've been doing a lot of them lately with a couple different series, but I've really started to appreciate the value of streaming series. And I know I'm talking about them a lot throughout the session, but it's just been really cool to see the growth that's happened for some of our students, and to have events and series that can build on each other. You know, for our esports community, Alex is our student who's been doing this series called Career Chats. So we planned for 8 weeks. Every Wednesday at 6:30, I think, we did our esports career chats. So we both provided great content for our student community, but also gave him this chance to like grow and develop too, which was really cool. And now we're doing a similar thing with SGA. I mentioned it earlier, our civic engagement and social action series. But I am anticipating a similar result. And I just think like giving people that constant chance, one, it gives something for viewers to do, but it also creates this really meaningful experience for our org members. You know, they get to be in this environment where they can have thoughtful reflection, and they can feel like they're giving back to the DePaul community. And you know, not everybody watches the whole time. Like you can see the metrics of how long people watch, and most people don't tune in for like a full, you know, hour, 35 minute to hour session, but a lot of people will watch for like 5, 6, 7 minutes, and they're watching and they're learning and they're connecting, and you just never know what they'll take away from that portion of the section. So I've really enjoyed like just how we've leaned into streaming at DePaul. I think it's really going to help for the long run, both to provide students the chance to connect with us, but also hopefully, you know, if all goes well, that they feel the sense of connection to DePaul too. Like that's why we're doing it. Like it's this new and different way to get in front of them. And I really do hope it creates that sense of connection. So, you know, for our viewers, if you have any final questions, feel free to post them in the comments. We're happy to have our panelists today talk about them. But as we're, you know, wrapping up our call here, I'm curious your thoughts on hybrid events. You know, events that both take place online and in person. Has anybody had any experience with them so far? What do you think? How do you think they're going so far?
So go ahead, Caleb.
Thanks, Rich. I will say we did all of our in-person events for our Stampede Week, Welcome Week, both virtually and in person. So we did have the space for the students who didn't want to come on campus to tune in and watch. The numbers were not there. That's a nice way of saying they didn't tune in like I wanted them to. But we offered it to the students. And I will say it's one thing I kind of hope does stick around, because I feel like there's a population of students who are fully online, who are not coming to campus, and they don't get to engage in the things that they are paying for. So I hope that we can improve how we do that streaming so that people do want to tune in. And when we go back to what was normal, and whenever we get the new norm and what that is, I hope that this part stays around so students can tune in and see those experiences and have that time, whether it's live or if it's viewed in the end, depending on how contracts are written. But I'm hoping it stays around. I would say that my experience hasn't been bad, but the turnout for it has not been as good as I want it to be.
Yeah, we've done one that's been a hybrid in-person and virtual event, and you know, I think I agree with you, Caleb. I hope that it sticks around, because I do think that there's a certain clientele who either they're not comfortable in crowds, or they're not comfortable, they just don't want to come in person, or because of an other commitment they can't be physically in that spot. So I do hope it sticks around. I think, you know, it's challenging, and because it's a lot of work. And I think that, as you indicated earlier, for something, Courtney, having people there to assist with the production side is critical to doing it. But I agree. I hope it sticks around. I find it fun. I find it kind of exciting. It's a different way of doing things. So, I'm looking forward to where it goes. I'm just hoping we can get back to normal soon, but I'm looking forward to it.
Well, Rich, do you mind if I piggyback?
Oh, no, totally. Go ahead.
So what I was thinking about is it's another leadership experience for our students. So when we start creating new boards, I may have a new production person and be like, hi, your job is now to do all of this, because I don't have the bandwidth sometimes to figure all that out and work on contracts and manage 7 other people on the board. So maybe that is something that we get to experience and add in, and they find out how do they engage them. And I would love to see someone who is better at technology than me figure out how to stream things and to start working on it. I think it's a great learning experience for those students in those majors and with those interests.
Yeah, so for hybrid events, like we honestly have not done that many of them because we just started classes, but I know like from the one that we had, we haven't seen success with it yet, but I'm assuming we'll try it a couple more times this year.
Yeah.
Kind of like Rich is saying, I think even when we are back in person, you know, closer to normal, whatever that is going to look like in the future, I think virtual programming is here to stay. I think there's going to be online components, not necessarily always hybrid, but I think that there's always going to be online offerings that are going to be important to campus activities and part of the student experience for sure.
Yeah. Well, and we're definitely setting the standard right now that there is virtual ways to engage virtually. So, you know, even if and when there's a vaccine and things, you know, capacities can rise and all of that, I think it's definitely going to be a staple for our students' experience here on forward.
Well, and I think that the other thing is there's so many cost-effective ways to do it out there. Like StreamYard, for example, is not, in the big scheme of things and in the streaming world, it's a reasonably priced software package that's out there, and it's not even a software, a web page that is out there. So I mean, I think there's that, and you know, I guess I'd tell anybody too who may be a little bit leery about it. I mean, it's like anything that I kind of look into that's new is I sure as hell better figure out how to find the fun in it. I mean, if I can't find fun in doing it, there's no point in doing it anymore. And which I think is with this whole thing, it's been as horrible as it's been, and as much as I hated sitting in my house for months, there was a sense of fun and finding that excitement and the fun in what we do and how we do it. And that, like I said earlier, if there's any office that can probably do any of this stuff, it's probably a student activities office that can pull 99% of the stuff off without really thinking about it.
Well, I think that's our jobs. Like when you, like Kay always my supervisor makes fun of me because she goes, Caleb's the guy on campus that'll go, oh, I'll figure it out. Yeah. And Courtney knows because I built so many things for Courtney. And she's like, I'll figure it out when we used to work together. But I'll
never forget the light show of Winter Glow.
I figured it out. I did a light show.
You did.
I did. But we always joke, like, we're the people that figure it out. Like, we don't ask questions. We're just like, oh, yeah, we got to do this. Okay, I'll figure it out. You know, we'll find some way to do it. And it's just fun to do it. And it changes it up for us, which is why I'm excited to do this.
Well, and in that spirit, you know, I think it's important for our student viewers to know we have that mentality. And, you know, no matter whether you're watching it on DePaul's platform, UCO, Simpson, Maryville, we have that spirit and we want to help you. And I know I can speak for all 4 of the universities and say that that is true. So if we can help you with that, feel free to reach out and connect. We are always happy to help. But panelists, you know, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Again, I think we had a really great conversation for today. So for our student viewers, our next session is going to be next Thursday, again, 4 Eastern, 3 Central time. We're going to be talking about team building through virtual experiences. So
I won't be there.
And you'll have to, we all know Rich's feelings on team building if you checked into our first event from the series. But until then, stay safe, everyone, and we will see you again soon. Bye-bye, everybody.
See ya.
Bye.